Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot, directed by Paul Feig, and starring Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones, Chris Hemsworth, and featuring a slew of cameos from the original Ghostbusters actors and actresses, the likes of course, Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Annie Potts, and Sigourney Weaver, with a nice little bust, I might add, dedicated to Harold Ramis. The entire film was for Harold Ramis, and I love that. From right out of the gate, I mean, this movie has gotten so much flack before it was even released, and right out of the gate, I loved it. I knew I would love it, and I should say, I liked it a real lot, for about the first 3/4 of the movie. And then when the finale takes over, the sort of ghost-busting, all hell breaking loose toward the end of the piece, then that's what pushed it over the top. I absolutely loved it from that point on. And I knew I was going to have a lot of fun with this particular film. Going back to a trailer review I did of it, I basically had said this looks kind of like a big budget, big screen version of an episode of the real Ghostbusters, which I was a big time fan of, and a cartoon spin-off to the original Ghostbusters, taking place after the first Ghostbusters in its early seasons. And then after Ghostbusters 2 came out, they sort of modified the series and, included like things, references to Vigo and all that kind of stuff, as we see in Ghostbusters 2. And then, of course, there was the Extreme Ghostbusters series, which I also enjoyed. Didn't see a lot of it, but what I did see of it, I enjoyed. And that's just because I have always loved the Ghostbusters universe. And the only sort of significant difference this film has to any of those cartoons, spin-offs, and such like that, the comic books, is that this is kind of like a pilot for a brand new series featuring brand new Ghostbusters in a brand new universe. And if you can kind of get over that crutch, and realize that the classic Ghostbusters films, the classic cartoons, these aren't going anywhere. They're still going to be available on your shelf, to own on home video, DVD, and Blu-ray, and whatever, 4K, whatever the new thing is as of the time of this recording. As long as you realize they're not going anywhere, nobody's stolen it from you, there really is no reason why you can't go into this movie and try to be open-minded and really get a kick out of it, which is what happened for me. I really love all 4 of the main Ghostbuster characters in this particular film. Melissa McCarthy's Abby Yates, Kristen Wiig's Aaron Gilbert, Kate McKinnon's Gillian Holtzman is probably, I've heard a lot of talk, spoiler-free talk about the film, saying that she kind of steals the movie, and I have to agree with that. I knew she was going to be my favorite character in the movie before I ever saw it, just based on some of the, trailers and TV spots and things like that. As well as Leslie Jones's Patty Tolan. Here is a character who I love that, they kind of bring forth this almost anthropological historian flavor with her character, which she really has a high intellect when it comes to the history of New York, and she adds so much to the group, and she's absolutely hilarious. Of course, all 4 women are hilarious given the circumstances. Basically what kind of surprised me, and I'll get a little spoilery in this discussion, but opening the movie, I was kind of expecting it to almost be akin to the original Ghostbusters, where you see Abby Yates and Aaron Gilbert being sort of the Venkman and Ray Stantz characters, already kind of together. And we start off following Kristen Wiig's Aaron Gilbert, who is shocked and surprised to find that behind her back, Abby Yates has been selling and making a lot of money off of a book that they co-wrote, about ghosts and the science behind, figuring all that out and everything like that. A lot of speculative science, I would imagine. But because she is, practically about to have tenure handed to her in her, basically tutorial role, if you will, in a college, she's very upset because it makes her look like a crackpot. It makes her look insane. And so when you have Aaron Gilbert and Abby Yates meeting back up together, there's this reconciliation that has to happen. And it all revolves around, finally, the proof being in the pudding, the ghosts coming to life. That very first librarian sort of looking ghost, very much an homage, I think, to the original Ghostbusters, but it's actually in like a manor house that's been converted into sort of a museum and everything like that. And this is the, you've seen it in the trailers, the ghost that vomits all the slime ectoplasm all over Aaron Gilbert. And, I mean, a lot of the things that, and I've heard other people saying things along these lines, and I have to agree, but a lot of the things you've seen in the trailers and the teasers and the clips are very much sort of out of context and lose their luster if you're just seeing it in the clips. If you're watching the full movie, there's much more a context to what's going on. It's much more, I would say, hilarious at times. And I mean, I was chuckling a fair amount through the entire course of the movie and just feeling hunky-dory. Like, I was just enjoying myself through the entirety of it. I think the biggest gripe I could have is that it just felt a little bit to me like it took forever to get to the actual finale, the actual ghost-busting finale, which is where I say is the turning point for me, where I really, really liked the movie. And then when that finally occurred, when all hell was breaking loose and the villain Rowan was, unleashing all the ghosts on New York and all that kind of stuff, and the Ghostbusters come together and, are literally fisticuffs going up against these ghosts and everything, that's where it put it over the top for me, and I absolutely loved it. There's a scene where Holtzman is basically singularly kicking Ghost ass, and it's just like, oh, hell yes. I was just loving it. You see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man as a giant balloon in a sort of Macy's Day Parade gone awry with a whole bunch of attack balloons and things of that nature. And all of the ghosts, I mean, just over the top. It so thoroughly reminded me of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. I couldn't believe it, and it was just making my mouth water. I wanted to see more ghosts and more Ghostbusters on ghosts action and everything like that. There's even a bit toward the very, very end of the piece that if you say post credits, there's a little sequence that sets up a potential sequel, and from what I hear, the movie made enough money that they are going ahead with a sequel, and I thoroughly, thoroughly welcome it, especially thinking in terms of some of the cameos in the film, two in particular, one being Ernie Hudson's cameo as Leslie Jones's Patty Tolan's uncle, who is quite ticked off that she made off with one of his hearses in his funeral home business. And by the end of the film, I won't spoil as to why, but she can't really get his car back for him. He's wondering where his other hearse went and everything. And that was hilarious, as well as Sigourney Weaver playing the sort of, I think she says, or rather describes her as being her sort of idol or something like that, the Gillian Holtzman character, Kate McKinnon's character. And, basically they've done Sigourney Weaver looking very sort of Nutty Professor-esque, the female equivalent, which you can kind of see why certain aspects of that character, were passed down to the Gillian Holtzman character. And they're all giddy about certain machinery that she's just created or is testing out and has really been untested. And it could all blow up at a moment's notice and disintegrate everything in the area. And they're just kind of really keen about that. They're almost anarchists, as well as scientists. But it's just absolutely fantastic. I have to also admit, with all of the talk, going back to some of the earliest rumors about the screenplay of Ghostbusters 3, the purported Ghostbusters 3 that was intended before the video game came out and very much solidified in my mind, that being the perfect sort of Ghostbusters 3 equivalent, the video game, as I say. But there was so much talk about Bill Murray's not wanting any part of this entire affair. And he has the most time on screen, I would think, in cameo form in this film as sort of a disbeliever, a scientist or whatever it is, that absolutely refutes the evidence caught on camera from the Ghostbusters in the film. Even going so far as to, after being interviewed on the news, he goes and confronts them directly, and he wants to see the proof. And subsequently, spoiler warning, but he gets thrown out a window, and it's absolutely hilarious. And Chris Hemsworth, man, speaking of the hilarity, definitely made me laugh out loud several times in the film, being the male equivalent of a dumb blonde. I've been on a Three's Company kick, watching a lot of episodes of that classic series starring John Ritter, Joyce DeWitt, and Suzanne Summers. And her character, Suzanne Summers' character, Chrissy, I mean, basically, Chris Hemsworth's character could give her a run for her money as far as how stupid he can be in this movie. And it's like, there are times where it's facepalm worthy, and there are times where it's laugh out loud worthy. The entire exchange, you could probably find the clip online. Once again, a clip that is funnier in the movie as a whole, rather than just watching it as a clip. But during his interview, and they've asked him to create logos for the Ghostbusters, and he comes up with a sort of very buxom female ghost. And then the one that made me laugh out loud, and it makes me laugh out loud every time I see it, is the hot dog floating over the house, and he insists that the hot dog floating is meant to imply a ghost is holding it, because you can't see the ghost. It's like there are so many little jokes like that make me bust a gut. And then, of course, some of the comedy is more in line with what I hear is sort of commonplace in Paul Feig's movies, which I'm not largely familiar with. But I have to say, this movie, from beginning to end, for me, this is one man's opinion, I don't care whether you love it or hate it, whatever, down the line, I absolutely had a blast with it. I love it. I can't wait to own it. I can't wait to put it on my shelf next to the original Ghostbusters film from 1984, Ghostbusters 2 from 1989 or 90, I forget when that came out. 5 years later is when it's set in any case. And even the Ghostbusters video game. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is another chapter, a spin-off chapter, nonetheless, but another chapter in the annals of the franchise that is the Ghostbusters. And there have been so many. In different chapters, quite frankly, from, again, the original movies, the Real Ghostbusters cartoon, Extreme Ghostbusters, and an entire line of many different, titles in the comics IDW has published and the like, following all kinds of different Ghostbusters, from, sort of the Extreme Ghostbusters in, including a disabled character, to having women Ghostbusters, to having a mixture of male and female Ghostbusters. And the list goes on. And this is just another, as far as I'm concerned, grand chapter in that franchise. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to see a sequel. And that's really all I can say. I can only speak to my own experience with it. Thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and it really kicked into high gear once the ghost busting actually kicked into high gear in the film. And I think the only cringeworthy moment might have been, spoiler warning once again, but seeing Slimer basically making off with the Ecto-1, and then we see that he has a female counterpart, which I understand was something debuted in a clip online, which I hadn't actually seen. I had only heard about, and, come to watch the movie, I see that this sort of just, it looks like Slimer in drag, at least they could have made it pink or something, I don't know. And that was just mildly cringeworthy. The rest of the film, I have no complaints about. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I can't wait to see it again. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Love it or hate it, and I'm sure there will be plenty of hate to go around because people can't, get over themselves. But let me know what you thought of the film. If you've seen it, if you're not going to see it, let me know that as well. Give me a reason, good reason as to why. And if your only argument is going to be, oh, I just hate remakes and reboots and all that kind of stuff, just don't waste my time. I've had this discussion so many times. I've been on that side of the discussion. I've been on the opposite side of the discussion, where certain reboots and remakes are actually pretty cool to me and I've enjoyed. And it's just a matter of taste, and it's all subjective. So touching back upon the gist of this video, I had a lot of fun watching the Ghostbusters 2016 remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, and I just had a blast with it. So thoroughly enjoyed it. Love to hear from you guys. Love having that conversation, whether you do love it or hate it, but keep the hate to a minimum. And so yeah, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.